Maya was a young woman whose beauty was rivaled only by the dreams that shimmered in her heart. Her eyes, bright with a quiet hope, held the promise of a future yet to unfold. She lived in Haven Ridge, a small coastal town where the rhythm of the waves and the scent of salt in the air were as familiar as her own heartbeat. Haven Ridge was a place of timeless charm, its cobblestone streets lined with pastel-coloured cottages, quaint shops and a lighthouse that stood sentinel over the harbour. The town was a haven for dreamers, its cliffs and beaches a canvas for stories whispered by the wind. Maya's days were filled with simple joys, sketching intricate designs in her leather-bound notebook, tending to her garden of wildflowers, and imagining a life where love and adventure intertwined. She was kind, thoughtful, and carried a warmth that drew people to her, though she kept her deepest thoughts tucked away, shared only with the pages of her diary. Maya's life was rooted in a small cottage her parents had left her, its walls adorned with her artwork and shelves brimming with books of poetry and adventure. She had grown up in Haven Ridge, the only child of a fisherman and a schoolteacher, both of whom had instilled in her a love for beauty and stories. Her father Elias had taught her to see the world through the lens of the sea, vast, unpredictable, and full of wonder. Taking her on his boat to watch the sunrise over the horizon, her mother Lila had filled her evenings with tales of heroines who carved their own paths reading by the fireplace as the wind howled outside. After their passing in a storm, when Maya was 17, she had learned to carry her grief quietly, channeling it into her art and her garden. The cottage became her sanctuary, its creaking floors and sea-facing windows, a reminder of her parents' love. Now at 24, she worked part-time at the Turning Page, the town's cosy bookstore, where the smell of old paper and the chime of the doorbell greeted her each morning. Her evenings were spent by the cliffs where she'd sit with her sketchbook, letting the ocean's song soothe her restless spirit. Maya dreamed of a love that would sweep her off her feet, a partner who would see the world through her eyes and share in her quiet aspirations. She had dated briefly in the past. A local poet, a sailor who left for distant shores, but no one had stirred her heart. She longed for a connection that felt like the stories her mother had read, a love that was both anchor and sail. Her heart was patient, but it yearned, and she poured that yearning into her sketches, drawings of lovers under starlit skies, of hands entwined against the backdrop of the sea. One crisp autumn evening, at a gathering hosted by her friend Clara, Maya's life took an unexpected turn. Clara's home was alive with laughter, the glow of lanterns casting warm shadows across the room. The gathering was a mix of familiar faces and newcomers, the air filled with the clink of glasses and the hum of conversation. Amid the crowd, Maya noticed a young man whose presence seemed to command attention without effort. His name was Zion, a newcomer to Haven Ridge, and he was everything Maya had ever imagined in a partner, charming, ambitious, and quick, with a smile that could melt even the coldest heart. Their eyes met across the room, and for a moment the chatter faded, leaving only the pull of something unspoken, like a tide drawing her toward him. Zion approached her, his confidence tempered by a genuine curiosity. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice warm and inviting, his eyes locking onto hers. Blushing, Maya replied. "Maya, and yours?" "Zion," he said, his smile widening. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Maya." That night they talked for hours, their conversation flowing as naturally as the tide. Zion shared stories of his travels, tales of bustling cities, desert sunsets and mountain trails that had shaped his restless spirit. He spoke of his childhood in a crowded city, the son of a businessman who valued success above all, and how he had left to forge his own path. Maya in turn spoke of her love for art and the quiet beauty of Havenridge. She told him of her childhood of nights spent listening to her father's tales of the sea of the sketches. She poured her heart into drawings that captured the dreams she held close. Zion listened with a focus that made her feel seen, his eyes bright with interest. For Zion, Maya's sincerity and quiet strength were a breath of fresh air in a world that often felt rushed and superficial. Her grounded presence was a reminder of what he'd been missing, a sense of home. By the time the evening ended, they had exchanged numbers, and Maya felt a spark of something she hadn't known she was searching for. Over the weeks that followed, their friendship blossomed. They met for coffee at the Salted Bean Havenridge's cozy cafe, where they'd linger over steaming mugs and share their dreams. They walked along the beach at sunset, the sand cool beneath their feet, and laughed over shared stories. Zion told Maya of his ambition to build a tech company, a dream that had brought him to Havenridge to work for a startup in the nearby city of Crestview. He spoke of innovation, of creating something that would change lives, and his passion was infectious. Maya in turn showed him her sketches, her fingers trembling as she revealed the delicate lines of her imagination, drawings of the sea of lovers under starlit skies of a world where dreams came true. Zion's admiration was genuine, and his encouragement made her believe in her art in a way she hadn't before. He traced the lines of her drawings with his finger, asking about the stories behind them, and Maya felt her heart open to him. Life began to feel like a fairy tale. Maya's heart, once cautious, surrendered fully to Zion. She wrote in her diary of the way his laughter lit up her world, of the way his hand brushed against hers and sent her heart racing. She described the warmth of his presence, the way he made her feel like anything was possible. She wrote of their walks, of the way the sunset painted his face in gold, of the promises they made to each other under the stars. Every moment with him felt like a gift, a promise of a future filled with love. Zion, too, was captivated by Maya. He admired her gentleness, her ability to find beauty in the ordinary, and the quiet strength that anchored her. He began to see Havenridge through her eyes, its simplicity, a contrast to the frenetic pace of his past. Their connection deepened with each passing day, a tapestry woven of shared glances, whispered promises, and unspoken hopes. Months passed, and their bond grew unbreakable. One evening, under a sky painted with stars, Zion took Maya's hand and led her to a quiet spot by the cliffs overlooking the sea. The sound of the waves crashing below filled the air, a symphony that seemed to echo the rhythm of their hearts. Zion had planned this moment carefully, his heart pounding with anticipation. He had spent weeks choosing the ring, a simple band with a pearl that reminded him of the sea she loved. He knelt before her, the velvet box in his hand, his eyes shining with emotion. "Maya," he said, his voice steady but thick with feeling. "You've brought light into my life in ways I never thought possible. You're my home, my reason to dream bigger. You make every moment better, and I want to spend the rest of my life by your side, building a future together. Will you be a part of my life forever?" Tears welled up in Maya's eyes, her heart swelling with a joy she could barely contain. She thought of her parents, of the love they had shared, of the life she wanted to build with Zion. She saw their future laughter, adventures, a home filled with love. "Yes, Zion," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I will always be with you." Their wedding was a celebration of love, held in a garden adorned with roses, lavender and fairy lights. Friends and family gathered under a canopy of stars, their cheers mingling with the music that filled the air. Maya radiant in a flowing white dress embroidered with delicate flowers, felt as though she were living in a dream. The dress had been her mother's, carefully preserved, and wearing it felt like carrying her parents' love with her. Zion, dashing in a tailored suit, looked at her with a love that promised forever. They exchanged vows. They had written themselves, promising to cherish each other through every storm and sunrise. Maya's vow spoke of a love that would grow like her garden, resilient and beautiful. Zion's promised to be her anchor and her wings. They danced under the moonlight, their laughter blending with the soft strains of the violin, and for that moment the world was theirs. The first year of their marriage was everything Maya had hoped for. They moved into a small house near the coast, its windows framing views of the ocean. The house was modest, but filled with love. Its walls hung with Maya's sketches, its kitchen alive with the aroma of herbs as they cooked dinners together. They planted a garden together, a patch of earth where roses and lavender bloomed under their care. They planned their future trips to far-off lands. A family, they'd build a life they'd create, side by side. Maya took up painting her canvases, bursting with colour, inspired by the love that filled her heart. She painted the sea, the cliffs, and Zion's smile, each stroke a testament to her happiness. Zion, meanwhile, threw himself into his work, determined to make his mark in the tech world. He'd come home with stories of his day, and Maya would listen, her heart swelling with pride. But as the months turned into years, the fairy tale began to fray. Zion's job at the tech startup in Crestview demanded more of his time. The company was growing, and with it came pressure deadlines, meetings and late nights at the office. At first, Maya was supportive, proud of Zion's dedication. She filled her days with work at the turning page, her garden and her paintings, hoping to recapture the spark of their early days. She'd leave notes in his briefcase, small drawings or words of love, hoping to remind him of their bond. But as Zion's absences grew longer, the house felt emptier. The dinners they once shared were replaced by cold plates left on the counter, the conversations by brief texts promising he'd be home soon. Maya began to feel like a ghost in her own life, her presence unnoticed, her love unreturned. She tried to bridge the gap, planning surprise dinners or suggesting weekends away, but Zion's responses were distracted, his mind elsewhere. He'd come home exhausted, his patience worn thin, and their conversations grew strained. Doubt crept into Maya's heart, a quiet fear that she was losing him. She missed the man who had once made her laugh until her sides ached, who had held her hand and promised forever. In his place was someone distant, consumed by work and stress, his warmth buried beneath a growing wall of excuses. Maya began to question herself, wondering if she had changed, if she was no longer enough. She'd stand in her garden staring at the wilting roses and wonder where their love had gone. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Maya confronted him. The house was quiet, the only sound the distant crash of waves. "Zion," she said, her voice trembling. "You've changed so much. I barely see you anymore. I feel like I'm losing you, and it's breaking my heart." "Don't you see what this is doing to us?" Zion sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Maya, I'm doing all this for us, for our future. I'm under so much pressure at work, clients, investors, deadlines. I'm trying to build something for us, something that will last. Can't you try to understand?" His words stung, and Maya felt a pang of guilt for questioning him. She wanted to believe him, to trust that his sacrifices were for their shared dreams. But understanding couldn't fill the emptiness that grew inside her. She began to withdraw her once vibrant spirit, dimming with each passing day. The garden she had loved, went untended. Its flowers wilting under the weight of neglect, her paintings remained unfinished, their colours muted. Her diary, once filled with dreams, now held her quiet sorrows. Pages of longing for the love they had lost, of questions she couldn't answer. She wrote of the ache in her chest, of the nights she lay awake listening for the sound of his key in the door. It was during this time that Maya met Rahan. He was a regular at the turning page, a quiet man with kind eyes and a gentle demeanour. Rahan was a writer, often seen scribbling in a notebook or reading poetry in the bookstore's cafe. He had moved to Havenridge a year earlier, seeking solitude after a painful breakup that had left him wary of love. Unlike Zion, Rahan noticed the sadness that Maya tried to hide. One afternoon, as she restocked shelves, he struck up a conversation about a book they both loved, a collection of poems that spoke of love loss and the search for meaning. His warmth and attentiveness were a balm to Maya's wounded heart. And over time their conversations grew into a friendship. Rahan was different from Zion, where Zion was bold and driven. Rahan was introspective and empathetic. He listened when Maya spoke, not just to her words, but to the emotions beneath them. He shared stories of his own growing up in a family that moved often, finding solace in writing and learning to carry his own heartaches. He spoke of his ex-partner, a woman who had chosen ambition over love, and how it had taught him the value of presence. When Maya mentioned her loneliness in passing, he didn't dismiss it. Instead, he offered quiet support, a presence that felt steady in a world that seemed to be crumbling. They began to meet outside the bookstore, sharing coffee at the Salted Bean, or walking along the cliffs. Their conversations a refuge from Maya's pain. Maya Rahan said one day as they sat in the bookstore's cafe, "You don't have to carry this alone. You deserve to be loved, to be seen. Your heart is too beautiful to be left in the shadows. You're stronger than you know, but you don't have to be strong all the time." His words stirred something in Maya, a longing for the connection she had lost. She didn't intend for her feelings to deepen, but Rahan's kindness was a lifeline in her darkest moments. They shared stories of their pasts. Rahan spoke of a childhood spent chasing stability, of finding home in words, while Maya revealed her dreams of travelling the world, of filling her life with colour and light. She told him of her parents, of the storm that had taken them, and of the cottage that held their memories. She spoke of Zion, of the love they had built, and the cracks that had formed, and Rahan listened without judgment. Though she never crossed the line into infidelity, an emotional bond formed, one that filled the void Zion had left. As the months passed, Maya's marriage deteriorated further. Zion's late nights grew more frequent, his excuses more hollow. He began to snap at her, his patience worn thin by the stress of his job. Maya tried to reach him to rekindle the love they had shared, but each attempt was met with indifference. She'd cook his favourite meals only to eat alone. She'd suggest walks by the sea only to be met with a tired excuse. She began to feel invisible. Her love, a weight rather than a gift. Her diary became her confidant, its pages filled with the ache of a heart that no longer knew how to hope. She wrote of the girl she had been full of dreams, and the woman she had become weighed down by sorrow. She wrote of Rahan, of the guilt she felt for leaning on him, and of the love she could no longer give. One rainy afternoon, Maya's world shattered completely. She had gone to surprise Zion at his office in Crestview, hoping to share a quiet lunch and remind him of the love they had built. She had spent the morning baking his favourite oatmeal cookies, her heart tentative but hopeful, the recipe one her mother had taught her. But as she approached the glass doors of his office, she saw him with another woman. They were laughing, their closeness unmistakable. his hand lingering on her arm in a way that spoke of intimacy. The cookies fell from Maya's hands, scattering on the wet pavement as her heart broke. She turned away, the rain hiding her tears, her footsteps heavy with betrayal. The world seemed to blur around her, the sound of the rain drowning out everything but the pain in her chest. That night she confronted him. The house was dark, the air thick with tension. "Zion," she said, her voice shaking with hurt. "You broke my trust. I saw you with her. How could you do this to us? To me?" Zion's response was cold, devoid of the warmth she had once known. "What can I do?" "Maya, I wasn't happy. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. I needed something else, someone who doesn't make everything so heavy. You're always so serious, always wanting more from me." His words were a dagger cutting through the last threads of hope Maya had clung to. She retreated into herself, shutting out the world. The house that had once been a haven now felt like a prison, its walls echoing with her loneliness. She stopped going to the bookstore, unable to face Rahan's kindness when her heart was so broken. Her garden withered its roses, turning to dust. Her paintings, once vibrant, gathered dust in the corner. Even Rahan's support couldn't fully reach her, though he tried to be there, sending messages of comfort and offering to listen. Maya's pain was too deep, too raw. She felt unworthy of his kindness, consumed by the guilt of her crumbling marriage and the betrayal that had shattered her. Night after night, Maya turned to her diary, pouring out her grief. She wrote of love lost, of trust, betrayed, of a heart that no longer knew how to beat. She wrote of the dreams she had held, of the life she had imagined with Zion, and of the betrayal that had stolen it all. She wrote of Rahan, of the guilt she felt for leaning on him, and of the love she could no longer give. She wrote of her parents, of the storm that had taken them, and of the strength she wished she could find. One night, as the rain pounded against the windows, she broke down completely. Her pen trembled as she wrote, "Sometimes love is not enough. When trust breaks, everything falls apart. I've fought for so long, but I'm tired. I'm so tired. I just want peace." That night, Maya made a choice that would change everything. She closed her diary, its pages heavy with her truth, and lay down on her bed. The rain continued to fall, a quiet elegy for a life that had burned too brightly for the world to hold. The weight of her pain carried her away, her breath slowing until it stopped. The cottage, once filled with her laughter, stood silent, its walls holding the echo of her final moments. The next morning, when Rahan called and received no answer, a sense of dread gripped him. He had sensed Maya's withdrawal, her silence growing heavier with each passing day. He rushed to her house, his heart pounding as he broke down the door. Inside he found Maya lying motionless, her diary clutched in her hand, her eyes closed forever. The last page read, "I'm tired. I just want peace." Rahan's grief was immediate and overwhelming. He sank to the floor, tears streaming down his face as he held her hand, whispering apologies for not being enough, for not saving her from the darkness that had consumed her. He blamed himself, wondering if he could have done more, if his love could have anchored her. He sat there for hours, the rain outside mirroring the storm in his heart, until he found the strength to call for help. When Zion arrived, alerted by a frantic call from Rahan, he was confronted with the reality of his actions. Seeing Maya's lifeless body, his world collapsed. The ambition that had driven him, the excuses he had made, all seemed meaningless in the face of her absence. He fell to his knees, his sobs echoing in the silent room. "Maya," he wept just once. "Please forgive me. I did love you, I was a fool. I didn't see what I had until it was gone. I'm so sorry." But Maya was beyond his reach, her pain finally at rest. After her death, a small letter was found among her belongings addressed to Zion. It read, "Zion, you were my first love. I wished our story would last forever, but when only one person fights for love, the story always remains incomplete. I'm not angry with you. I forgive you, because I know you were lost too. I'll always wait for you in that world, where there's no pain and no distance." In the months that followed, Zion was haunted by his guilt. He left his job unable to face the life he had built at the cost of Maya's happiness. He moved away from Havenridge, but the memories followed him. Every night he read her diary, her words a constant reminder of the love he had failed to cherish. He tried to rebuild his life, volunteering at a community centre, hoping to find redemption. But the weight of his regret was a shadow he could not escape. The house they had shared stood empty, its windows dark, a monument to what could have been Zion. Kept the pearl ring he had given her, wearing it on a chain around his neck, a reminder of the love he had lost. Rahan too was changed by Maya's loss. He stopped writing his words, drying up in the wake of his grief. He left Havenridge unable to bear the weight of his regrets. He had loved Maya in his own way, a quiet love that had never been spoken, and her absence left a void he could not fill. He wandered from town to town, carrying her memory with him, a quiet ache that lingered in the spaces between his thoughts. In a small notebook, he wrote a single poem for her, a tribute to her light, but he never shared it, keeping it as a private offering to her memory. Maya's story became a whisper in Havenridge, a tale of love and loss that lingered in the hearts of those who had known her. Her garden, once vibrant, grew wild, its flowers reaching for the sky in a silent tribute to her spirit. The turning page kept a small display of her sketches and paintings, a reminder of the beauty she had brought to the world. Clara, who had introduced Maya and Zion, organised a memorial where the town gathered to share stories of Maya's kindness, her art and her light. They planted a rosebush in her honour, its blooms a symbol of her enduring presence. Years later, a local historian named Ilara discovered Maya's diary in the cottage, its pages worn but intact. Moved by its raw honesty, she published it as a small book titled The Heart of Havenridge. The book became a quiet phenomenon, its words resonating with readers far beyond the town. It spoke of love's joy and its pain of dreams that soar and hearts that break, and of a woman who had loved too deeply for a world that could not hold her. Elara also curated an exhibit of Maya's art, her sketches and paintings displayed in a Crestview gallery, drawing visitors who were touched by her vision. The exhibit included a single photograph of Maya taken by Clara at the wedding. Her smile radiant, her eyes full of hope. Havenridge changed with time, its streets busier, its lighthouse modernised. But Maya's presence remained in the cliffs where she and Zion had stood, the cafe where she and Rahan had talked, the garden where she had dreamed. Her story was told and retold, a reminder of the power of love and the consequences of neglect. The townsfolk spoke of her with reverence, a young woman whose light had burned briefly but brightly, leaving an indelible mark on their hearts. Children in Havenridge grew up hearing her tale, a cautionary story of cherishing those you love before it's too late. Maya remained a story of dreams of heartbreak, and of a heart that burned too brightly for the world to hold. Her ending was one that could never be changed, but her memory endured a quiet echo in the hearts of those she had touched, a testament to the beauty and fragility of love. Her diary, her art and her garden lived on, whispering her truth to those who pause to listen. A reminder that even in loss there is beauty, and in love there is eternity.